Drifting to places I should leave, so close to the edge of something so perfect. We were too scared to take the leap. I'm missing the way we used to be. Let me go. Left me in this mess I'm falling. Never know. Can't find a reason why. Couldn't get any closer. Can't find a reason why. Couldn't get any closer. Can't find a reason why. Couldn't get any closer. We couldn't get any closer. Tried to forget all that we had. I'm rolling like water in the sea. The memories crashing into me. So close to the edge of something so worth it. You have the world right at your feet. It almost is all we'll ever be. We can't get any closer. Let me go. Left me in this mess I'm falling. Never know. Can't find a reason why. Couldn't get any closer. Can't find a reason why. Couldn't get any closer. Can't find a reason why. We couldn't get any closer. We couldn't get any closer. We couldn't get any closer.
Yo, yo, yo! Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the stream. As always, I'm Crypto Nikolai, joined here with my partner in crime, Crypto J.
The one and only.
And we are excited to bring you some quick, down and dirty crypto news. We are a new beast today, and we're only doing a 1-hour stream for your pleasure, of course.
Yep, we're going to try out a slightly different format than the previous streams that we've done. During our week off, I had the pleasure of getting a lot of feedback from a lot of people that had tuned in before. And one of the big suggestions was that maybe we should try condensing our streams a little bit, make the information a little easier to digest. Because, streaming for, 2.5, 3 hours, covering a lot of information at one time can kind of get a little hectic and a little tough on the brain. So we're going to kind of try to trim that down, richen up the content a little bit, give us some more time to chat on a few different topics, go a little more in depth than we usually did before. So hopefully you guys like it. We'll have to see if we like it. It's going to be a little different than what we're used to.
It is, and what that's going to mean for us, of course, is getting through as much content as we possibly can in the short amount of time, while also, taking you guys along for the ride. Now, one thing I did want to mention is we will be streaming more frequently as part of this. So if you feel like you're missing out on content, just tune in later in the week.
Yep.
Upcoming for this week, we'll have a complete tutorial on how to trade. So today's more on the news and kind of informational bit, but Thursday upcoming will be a step-by-step approach to how to trade.
Yes.
The ins and outs of which websites to go each step, so that even if you're completely new, then you can follow along and understand exactly how to amass a small fortune on a website.
Yeah, and we gotta disclaim that, because earnings aren't typical among everybody.
No, and to be fair, what we do is provide news and information that you can then turn and make investment decisions about.
Absolutely.
So think about it as a resource in that way.
But Thursday's stream did come by rather high demand. Found out there was a little bit of a niche market there that was very interested in tuning in, but they just weren't too sure where to get started as an investor with much more powerful tools than the ones they're currently using. So we're definitely gonna have a lot of fun on Thursday. Kind of circling back to where we got our start and just kind of reliving those noob days, I guess.
Absolutely, and there's certainly a lot of mistakes and pitfalls to avoid along the way, so you'll be able to actually learn from our mistakes and then increase your margins that way. If you're new here, drop a quick message in chat. Let us know that you're new and chiming in. We'll love to field any questions. For now, we're looking here at the week-to-week performance on the coins. You're seeing some gains, some impressive gains here.
A lot more green than we saw last week.
Yeah, and what this is telling me is that we've kind of hit that dip where everyone wanted to buy in, and we're starting to see that rebound. So week-to-week jump, looking positive. This is a time when the market's gaining momentum. We'll see if some of these gains, though, are sustainable.
Yeah. Bitcoin, put soldiering on at that, healthy $6,500 mark. It's been there for several days now. Just, chilling happily there.
Yeah, you'll see a movement down to 6,200, a sell-off, but usually that's accompanied with a later in the day buy back up to around the price point we see here.
Ether kind of getting smacked around a little bit. Kind of took a tumble underneath 300. Not immediately worrisome, as people shift their funds into different coins and so on and so forth. Ripple was a massive blow up today. With the announcement of XRapid.
Yeah, so
we'll
definitely
get to that later on.
Yeah, so Ripple has benefited quite a bit this whole week, actually, from the run up. I think it was pushing around 26, 27 cents, and then really just started moving in that upward direction. Has come back down to earth a little bit, but definitely some positive signs. And like you said, the reason for that is the announcement of their XRapid platform.
Their payment processing platform.
That's right, and that's Ripple's game. They are looking, that's their one trick that they want to do. They want to dominate the money transaction, especially international money transaction.
Absolutely. That is very much their home turf. That is where they're most comfortable at, is the financial transfer side of things. So XRapid, huge win for them.
Now, weren't there some companies that were looking into that you heard about?
There were several. There were several. Some of which aren't coming to mind right now ever since my verbal typo.
Well, Western Union was one.
Naturally.
And so they are huge and involved in the cross-border payment industry. They did an analysis based off of small term scaling, and it really wasn't cost-effective for them. They did say that possibly, if all of Western Union's apparatuses were moved over and completely integrated, it probably would have brought the cost averages down, but because the sheer volume of what they have right now is basically means that, they weren't able to make it affordable. So in response to that, Ripple's actually statement, they came out and said, hey, we're not really focusing on some of these larger companies. We're going to focus X-Rapid on like startups. So companies that are just starting out, they don't really have that economies of scale that makes Western Union maybe less fee worthy.
Yeah, so I think them reaching out to startups, people or businesses in that sort of realm would be much more beneficial for them in terms of keeping transaction costs down and so on and so forth. Because Ripple Labs, being a startup once, I'm sure they know, kind of how those waters feel, and then being able to build this X-Rapid product and then deliver that back to the startup community. It kind of shows me that they haven't really forgotten where they come from.
Yeah,
which is very, very good. That sort of like homebrewy sort of feel.
Yeah, and there even have been reports that American Express is looking at this well.
Yeah.
Certainly not a startup, but definitely a big player in the industry.
But a fintech player, though. Mm-hmm. Big financial tech player.
Oh, yeah. So any kind of positive attention like that is reflected in the increased volume we're seeing here on Ripple. Pumping it up. It was up to 35 cents and has since come back down to earth.
Slight correction, but what goes up must come down.
Any other outliers stand out for you?
I know EOS had some pretty nice gains over the week.
Yeah.
Couple nice pumps that happened on that one.
Did you hear about the latest Chinese government rankings of coins?
I did not, but I do know that EOS has been just happily chilling at the top of that list for quite some time now.
Well, and things did not change this past time around. EOS was yet again number one.
Some things never change.
Yeah, some things stay the same and some things never change, that's right. But, EOS number one, Ethereum number two, so those remained unchanged. Now, the 10th position was actually overtaken by Bitcoin.
Ooh.
So Bitcoin is moving up, and the reason they cited for it was an increase, their latest development of technology and the implementation of Lightning was a big factor for them.
Yeah, the Lightning Network has helped Bitcoin just exponentially, in terms of speeding up transactions, cutting down the cost of those transactions, and a lot of people are starting to see much better results in terms of getting their transactions processed a lot quicker, because back then, it wasn't uncommon to wait 45 minutes for, a couple million Satoshis. But now, there's people that are processing, whole Bitcoin orders in a matter of just a few seconds, and with fees that essentially equate to pennies on the dollar. So that's really, really good. Happy to see that.
Yeah, and we're also seeing some improvements in the technological scene, and with these coins on others, not just Bitcoin. Ethereum actually updated their roadmap.
Yes, they did.
And
super stoked about that.
Yeah, so there's some big changes coming in potentially for Ethereum, and basically what it comes down to is that Ether realizes that scalability is a huge problem.
Yeah, it's a major hurdle that's kind of been plaguing Ethereum for quite some time.
Well, the reason for that is because they talk about the trilemma.
Yeah.
Okay. So the trilemma, when they talk about it within the Ethereum, kind of conversation circles, and really it affects all coins in general, is that, you lose the ability to scale if you concentrate power in super nodes or kind of larger nodes, because you lose that kind of anonymity and kind of the decentralization of the chain. So you kind of normally have had to give that up. But because of some innovative technologies that Ethereum is planning on developing, including their Casper proof of stake implementation.
Super happy about that.
So what'll happen is that they have they are developing a technology called sharding to help the scaling issue. And what sharding is unlike basically sharding is using a small portion of the network to validate transactions rather than the whole network.
Yeah, as a consensus, as a consensual whole, much like how Bitcoin operates, where the entire network has to come to a consensual agreement on whether or not the transaction is valid, and if there's even one verification that sort of says, hey, something's not right here, then that forces the entire network to sort of like step back and rethink what's going on. But with sharding, essentially the same process where the verifications and the transactions are blasted out along the blockchain, but it only requires certain, or not as an entire network of nodes to verify it, all while maintaining the basically the informational integrity of transferring it along the blockchain.
Yeah, exactly. If you want to think about an analogy to help kind of explain how all this information is moving around, think about a university. We here in Athens are blessed with a giant university nearby. So if all of the people at the university are all the users in the whole network, right? Each professor is kind of like one of these shards, one of these super nodes that through staking are kind of more secure, and they are allowed to process, basically their class worth of transactions, rather than all the professors having to do all the students. You just put, each classroom worth of transactions in little, bubbles, and you make it so that the professors are randomly assigned students so that there's no, chance of collusion.
Yeah, that was a wonderful analogy, actually. That makes total perfect sense, on a much more basic level. And it also makes sense because sometimes, this professor over here might not necessarily interact with this professor over here, but the work that they do directly results in what the student has, in their possession.
Yeah.
So, having that retaining that sort of degree of anonymity with sharding is much more beneficial than the old way of doing things with the proof of work system.
Right. And honestly, proof of work in my mind is just, maybe not as unsustainable a beast as has been exaggerated, but still is a energy intensive organism.
Very. Right. And Charlie Lee would disagree with you because, he's old school and he believes that proof of work coins are the only coins worth investing in.
Well, but now Ether was proof of work, or sort of is proof of work leading up into this thing. So is it now no longer a coin worth because it made the switch?
Yeah, and I mean, to me, I think that this is sort of like a landmark case, especially with the big three, because you've got Ripple, in third, and you've got Ether in second, Bitcoin in first.
Right.
Out of those three, Ether is the first one to make that transition from a proof of work over to a proof of stake system. So that's big news.
Yeah, and it's interesting because it's come at a time now. There had been previous iterations of this roadmap that they wanted to put out, but they modified it, and they actually made it a lot more democratic in a way, a lot more accessible. So when we talk about this proof of stake versus proof of work, instead of just generating, or discovering new coins at the conclusion of each block, proof of stake allows the sort of generation of coins by just an agreement basically of the holders to say, I'm just going to stake these, I'm going to put them in a wallet, and I'm just going to leave them there, I'm not going to move them. And once you build up a certain level, then you contribute your coins to the network, and that assists rather than having to just use the hash power to power the
and
transactions.
Rely strictly on that.
Yeah, which can go down and has issues, This is a little bit more like, okay, we trust the owners of our coin and we want to empower them and monetize this for everyone. And if you agree to put your coins in a wallet and stake them, just leave them there and contribute that amount towards the network power, then you're actually able to get rewarded.
Yeah. Now that's another great thing about proof of stake is that where if you're not a miner, you don't get rewards for holding certain coins.
Right.
The only way you get rewarded for mining is by actually mining. Now that's not to say that everybody who has a proof of stake coin staked into a wallet will receive a reward for that. There are certain thresholds that have to be met
in
order to receive that reward.
Right.
And in this case, it's 32 ether
Yeah.
staked 32 ether in order to start receiving staking payouts.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I know that might be a little unreasonable for some people because 32 ether is, it's 32 ether. That's thousands of dollars.
Right.
But, you know, things change in these systems all the time. So, it's not totally unheard of to think that maybe in the future, once this sort of system is implemented, is proven to be quite successful, that threshold might be halved.
Yeah.
Um,
I think 32 ether is much more attainable than the previous amount that had been required under the roadmap. Before that, it was to the tune of 1,500 ether.
yeah, that's just way, way out there.
And so what that was an attempt to say, hey, um, this is really for the people that have made significant financial contributions to the network. But at 32 ether, I mean, really, that's under at 275 ether per, or excuse me, dollars per ether. That's a little under $9,000. So for investors, who are especially looking to get into the game and have some money, you're able to get guaranteed passive revenue
Yes.
off of that investment. And what that does is it starts snowballing because you generate some of the coin, and then that in turn generates more coin.
Yeah, it just compounds as it grows.
Now we haven't heard the exact rate that you'll be getting
Right.
that return yet because this is still like roadmap. This is still like up and coming for like the upcoming year.
Yeah.
So
It's very important to think of this as sort of like Ethereum going through an ICO process. Because these are some really, really big changes that are happening. So, I mean, they're essentially having to rework and retool the entire system, recode it, and it's gonna be a process. It's gonna take a lot of time. This isn't gonna be something that Casper isn't gonna launch tomorrow, and it's not gonna launch next week. So, just keep an eye on the roadmap. The Ethereum team is always very, very transparent with the stuff that they work on.
Yeah, they like to call themselves the Ether Foundation. Like the core group there. They are quite prolific in terms of public content. You can just go to YouTube, search for Vitalik Buterin, and you'll see him speaking at various events. And he doesn't mince words. If he doesn't think that something works or something is worth looking at, then he'll tell you because he's operating so far in the future. He knows what needs to be done now.
He's on a total different wavelength than we are.
Yeah.
And for somebody being so young and so bright and intelligent, he's way ahead of the curve.
He has the vision, of what's coming and what needs to be done. It looks like we're entering into a bit of a pump on Ether USDT.
Was it FOMO time?
I kind of want to. If I had gotten in here, I could have made a couple bucks per. You know what I'm saying?
Well.
But anyway, so it's not super pump season. But anyway, so we did talk about the big three. We talked about the big three and how they're impactful. But we rarely talk about number four. It just it doesn't make it up there. And for those of you that are unaware, when we talk about the fourth one, it's the elephant in the room. That is, of course, Bitcoin Cash.
Bitcoin trash.
which is a polarizing coin, to say the least.
It is. And the reason it's polarizing is because it is a hard fork of Bitcoin. So you have your die-hard supporters, much like Ether versus Ether Classic, and how Ether Classic came to be about. Bitcoin Cash exists in very much the same sort of realm there.
Well, I mean, it's a fork, but that's about as similar as it gets between Bitcoin Cash. I mean, from what little I've seen, the Ether Classic community is not nearly as just toxic as some of the Bitcoin Cash people.
Yeah.
Because the Bitcoin Cash people are saying, we're bigger, we're better than Bitcoin.
We're the real Bitcoin.
Yeah, and it's like, well, are you?
Is that why you're only worth, what is that, like 1/12 of Bitcoin?
Yeah, and honestly, Bitcoin Cash does have, basically the difference is why they had a fork in the first place is they increased the block size.
Yeah.
So they increased the block size.
Increased the data throughput.
Which Yeah, which in theory allows for easier time doing smart contracts within the block. But to me, I was looking at block size, thinking, well, wait a second, does Ether have a gigantic block size? Like, because it has extensive smart contracts. I mean, if you want to
Yes.
talk about the smart contracts, that's kind of Ether's lane. That's really not Bitcoin Cash's lane. By any means. So I looked at the block size, and the Ether blocks aren't even aren't even close to that. We can actually take a look at Etherscan. Here we go.
Ether has a gas limit rather than a block size.
Oh, I mean, they list it here on Etherscan, so gas limit, you say? Interesting. So I don't know what that would correlate to. But looking at this, 25K versus 32 megs, you know what I mean?
I mean, 32 meg, in real life terms, really isn't that much. But when you're trying to cram a bunch of information into that block and keep it moving efficiently and keep the throughput cruising happily along, that
Right.
can become pretty challenging. But it's funny you mention Bitcoin Cash pushing for the bigger block size while Bitcoin is pushing for a smaller block size because they've been known to for doing block halvings or cutting the size of the block in half.
Now, was that I was under the impression that the halvening was a halvening of the rewards that were given out.
You're right. I'm tripping.
But I think, it's to me, and it being not as dialed in on the Bitcoin Cash side, it seems trivial that they have a bigger block, because the number of transactions might have a theoretical upper limit, but if no one's using it,
No, what's the point?
we did some research and found out that 56% of Bitcoin Cash is owned by 67 wallets. And these are non-exchange wallets,
Right.
so they
These are stored in offline wallets.
cold storage somewhere. So
John McAfee and his
What?
BitFi.
what? I mean, it's unhackable.
I'm not sure about that.
Well, you can't prove it, so it's unhackable.
Yeah, we'll get to that. If we have time at the end of the stream, we'll touch base on that because I actually do have a little bit of an update on that.
About the second hack?
Third hack, the newest one.
Okay, so there's another hack.
Yep.
Did they inject any malicious code or anything? Funny videos?
No.
Doom.exe?
Somebody ordered a pizza from it.
Okay.
So they did that. The funds are still Seifu.
Yeah.
But, BitFi and, John McAfee and his infinite knowledge and cocaine use, they keep moving the goalpost back.
Right.
They say, somebody will turn in proof that they've hacked it, and they're like, you didn't say the magic word.
Right.
You didn't do this, this, and this. And, everybody's back to square one. They cut the reward size down.
Yeah, and there's no way that you're going to get access to information that's not in there. So that's kind of the problem with the whole hack me if you can. You can't prove it's unhackable.
Yeah.
You could clearly get, if you were to give that wallet to someone and they would just put a code line that's changed your wallet or your destination
Right.
address, then yeah, I mean you could lose your stuff very easily. That's
Right.
just like a RAM modifier, like they have them on PC, where basically your clipboard gets hacked and you copy a transaction address and then into your clipboard, and then when you go to paste it into something else, you might be in a rush, you might not be checking all the letters and
then
numbers,
boom.
and it's modified. It's not the original one you copied. So anyway, and obviously there are ways to ensure that the things to check for, but it's always good, I would say, to double check the beginning few letters and the last few letters to make sure that you're looking at it. And if you're feeling very scrupulous, look at the middle as well.
Yeah.
But that should kind of help make sure you're using the right one.
Yeah. And, allegedly the most latest BitFi hack, or the person who performed it, claims to have, proof in the pudding. Like, he's got it. And BitFi and John McAfee said, well, if you've hacked it, send us the wallet and we'll verify it.
Yeah.
And, if it turns out to be a legitimate hack and you've secured the funds, then we'll issue the reward.
Right.
But the person who performed the hack has yet to send it in, because he's under the impression that, since McAfee and BitFi have moved the goalposts so many times, what's the point? They're just going to get a hold of it and they're going to scrutinize it so deeply that they're going to find some way of sort of weaseling their way out of it. But as it happens, if they do end up getting their hands on the wallet, we'll be sure to let everybody know the McAfee hilarity.
Yes, and while I don't expect him to be paying anyone, but it certainly is possible. So we'll definitely update you as we hear more. So it's interesting that that crypto, even being in a bear market, really has not lost its sort of public support. There was a big trade show out in Las Vegas yesterday, and that was Block Show Americas, an international event. People came through, very big, and honestly, it kind of went outside just the purely technological side of the crypto world and went out to intersections and things like politics and AI and stuff like that.
Yeah, pretty much anybody who's involved in any sort of industry that has a use case within the blockchain is always welcome. Even just regular investors are more than welcome to attend these sort of shows. I've never personally been to any sort of blockchain conference. I think it would be a really, really informational and educational thing to go check out. So donors, hop on that. We want to go to Block Week.
Yes, it would be really great to be able to do that. But at the end of the day, we can kind of read about some of the news and stuff, and that's almost good enough for me. Obviously, it'd be great to be able to go, but to be able to go there and hear that, it would be great. I mean, they had a former staffer from the Obama campaign. Say what you want about Obama, but this is someone that was
that's an influential person.
Yeah, this is someone who was in the White House recently. And started talking about how blockchain can assist with building democracy. Things like ensuring voting security and transparent, basically custodial chain of where the votes are and things like that.
There's even been there is a blockchain project. Not sure where they're at in their roadmap just yet, but they're actually working on putting people's identification documents on the blockchain so that no matter where you are in the world, these governmental agencies throughout the world will be able to access your ID if for whatever reason, you're hospitalized or, you get lost somewhere. And, even if you get mugged, while you're overseas, God forbid something like that should happen, if you do need to report it to the authorities, you'll be able to issue them some sort of ID number. And since it's stored on the blockchain, it's accessible from anywhere in the world at any time. And they'll know who you are in just a matter of seconds.
Yeah, and that's fairly terrifying. That someone can go out there and that they can locate me so quickly, as an individual. What if I don't want my information out there?
Yeah, and that's the big argument. I'm kind of with you on that one. I don't really want my information out there, and
it's already out there. Let's be honest.
Yeah, but we don't need it. This is supposed to be a decentralized and distributed system that's supposed to be used for the better and not ill.
Yeah, but the anonymity factor is big. If I do a smart contract on the Ethereum network to vote, for example, that I can just drop it and it fires off.
And nobody knows you from Adam.
It's verifiable on the other end, and that's good enough.
No, you don't have to see anybody. You don't have to talk to anybody. The smart contract takes care of everything for you.
You can set it up so it's like a one-time executable, and then just goes away, so these aren't like multiples. I mean, there are ways to run that. And I feel like that approach is just way better. The user doesn't have to go on there and get too involved informationally speaking. So
yeah,
definitely one thing I just noticed on Twitter. Another downfall of Bitcoin Cash payments of slump of $6.8 million in recent times.
Feels bad, Roger Ver.
I mean, if it's so good, why is it
Why
not
is-
being used?
Yeah, I mean, and I know there are people out there that use it, and there are, Bitcoin Cash diehard, hardliners that say, Bitcoin
Mhm.
Cash is the real Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Sure, Bitcoin Cash is faster and cheaper to move than Bitcoin, but lest we forget the use cases for both of them are vastly different. Bitcoin as a whole is meant to be a long-term store of wealth, not an everyday transactional coin.
Right.
That's what Bitcoin Cash is for. It's meant to be more utilitarian. It's meant to be spent at Starbucks. It's meant to be spent at your hairdresser, at the car dealership, wherever you go. To say that Bitcoin Cash is the real Bitcoin just does not make any sense to me, because they are two totally different things. That's kind of like saying Bitcoin and Ethereum are the same thing. It's just totally not true
Right.
at all.
Yeah.
They have totally different applications. It's like, I'm not going to go down to the corner store and buy a Red Bull with a bar of gold.
Mm-hmm.
That just makes no sense. I'm not going to walk into McDonald's and ask them if they take bullion. That's pointless. They're going to look at you like, what are you, fucking stupid? Like,
Right.
What am I going to do with this? Like, if I take a bar of gold, the guy behind you is just going to rob me.
Right.
So, of course, you probably aren't going to get robbed by using Bitcoin at, McDonald's or whatever. But, it's just, that argument is just such a waste of time to me. And, people, I'm pretty sure there's going to be people that are going to bark back and say, oh, you're just a Bitcoin fanboy. Well, that's fine. I might be a Bitcoin fanboy, but you know what? You got it wrong, because I'm an Ethereum fanboy.
Exactly. And, thinking back to when those communities split of the Bitcoin Cash community, I mean, there's just such divisiveness there,
And that's what happens with hard forks.
Yeah.
There's always such a rabid following of one or the other, sometimes both.
Mm-hmm.
Especially with the case of Ethereum Classic and how that hard fork resulted. It was just a bloody battle between the the Ethereum community and the miners and the nodes that were operating within the network. But that's a long, long, dark story that happened shortly after Ethereum popped up. Now, don't get me wrong, Ether Classic is working on some great stuff with their Ether Labs, or Ethereum Classic Labs, which is basically like a startup accelerator program, which is great to see. But, again, two wildly different use cases. One doesn't necessarily intersect with the other. So, it's hard. You can't say Ethereum Classic is the real Ethereum. You can't say Bitcoin Cash is the real Bitcoin. It's a nonsensical argument that's just going to go absolutely nowhere.
Yeah, yeah.
And the fanboys will argue it to the death, and while they're busy, bludgeoning each other to death over, pointless facts, I'm going to be over here trading it, making some money while these people are going blue in the face.
Yeah, and it's good to have your passion projects, and it's good to be passionate about things that you are into.
Absolutely.
But just because you're criticizing a coin doesn't make you a fanboy of another coin, or really anything. I mean, you're just pointing out criticisms of a coin, and
you're just wasting your time.
It's not the people's coin, and you make it out to be the real Bitcoin for everyone, and then nobody owns it. You know what I'm saying? So.
Yeah. Oh. I think we got a message. It's
Oh, it's Tom.
Oh, hey man, what's going on?
Good.
Sorry, I didn't mean to sort of trash your Ethereum Classic there. I was just pointing out an argument that I felt needed to be made.
Yeah, and hard forks always kind of stir things up anyway, like you said. So.
And if we got a little bit of time at the end of the stream, I'll kind of go into how the Ethereum Classic hard fork came to be. It's a very interesting story.
Yeah. Well, I did want to kind of continue back with the kind of the trade show that we were talking about a bit earlier. There was a wise investor named Bobby Lee. Obviously, he's on the BTC Foundation board. He has come up with 4 kind of mistakes to avoid when you're investing.
And we're all guilty of them in one way or another.
I was looking at that chart earlier, Tom, with the
Ether BTC is looking
BTC.
real good.
Yeah, and it's just the emotional feel that can turn a regular discussion about something and its merits to
Yeah.
personal attacks.
Another message. I agree with you guys. Never got what is that locked into a Coinbase
Based on personal
feeling, and that's what happened to Verge. Is like all their fanboys, and I will call them fanboys because they are. They are just rabid, and they hate everything that's not Verge.
Yeah. And it's fine to be supportive of something, but you gotta realize there's more than room. There's plenty of room for all the coins out there.
Yeah, and I mean you have to realize that there is a market that exists with 1,600 other altcoins on the market, and if you get blinders and you're only seeing what's in front of you, then you're missing everything else that's kind of existing outside of your stupid little bubble.
Yeah.
But Block Show.
Yeah, so there were 4 mistakes that Bobby Lee noticed that were basically saying, hey, don't do these. So they are being indecisive when investing.
Done it.
Not buying enough.
Done it.
Selling after a small gain.
Done it.
And selling after a panic crash.
Done it. Done it. Done it. Done it.
So
I've done all of them, sometimes simultaneously.
Why are these bad to do? Because they sound like, they're kind of, really... not knowing what to do or just reacting, right?
Sure.
On some of these.
And I'm glad you said reacting, because that's what a lot of sort of like what I call gut traders do. They trade very reactively. They see like a small dip and they're like, I got to get on that dip, but they don't look at the technicals and the fundamentals.
Yeah.
And they don't do their research before they buy in, and sometimes that can end in disaster.
So we can use this chart right here to show don't sell after a small gain.
Yes.
So if you were down here at 52.45 and you got up to 52.73 or 75, let's say that's a 30
round number,
30 Satoshi gain. Okay. So you get in, you sell
this
off.
This would be Gwei, actually.
Oh, true. Right. This is actually Ether pair, so good call. So 30 Gwei. Now, you get your 30 Gwei, you're feeling good, you're
like, man, that's so awesome, and then the pump ensues.
And then you get a 300 Gwei pump.
Yes.
Okay? And this happened, these are 1-minute candles. Okay? So...
this is all happening, boom, 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 boom. It's happening really fast. So, I mean, we went from a relative flat line... pushing sideways, and then in a matter of 5 minutes, it just launches to the friggin' moon.
300 Gwei gain is nothing to sneeze at, and especially if you do have some purchasing power on Binance, which again, we will walk you through how to get it there.
Yeah.
But if you have your purchasing power ready, and you happen to start catching this little pump right here, you catch in, you start tuning in, you start to see this positive momentum, you roll the dice, right? Because that's at the end of the day, it's riding the upper bound of the Bollinger Band. It could be a little overbought. It's a risky call for sure.
Yeah, but things can punch through Bollinger Bands, as we can see here. It punched through them, one big time right here, kind of nicked through it right here.
Yeah,
and it bounced off and pushed sideways, along the rest of the Bollinger Band. So, if the indecisiveness in investing. I kind of couple that with selling after a small gain because you're kind of in that unsure space. Do I sell? Do I hodl it? What do I do?
Yeah.
If the technicals are there, you get green candle after green candle after green candle after green candle. Why sell it?
Well, because I would say there's an inevitable sell-off coming.
Right.
And so after all those green candles, I would say what I've noticed in my personal view on this is traders generally can only sustain about 4 to 5 green candles at the most.
Yes.
Usually it's like 2 or 3. But in this case, it was a nice fat run, like several in a row. You can't really count those small ones because, the Bollinger Bands were so narrow that they weren't really doing anything. So, maybe 5 candles in a row, that's monstrous. Okay, rare, but fortunate. So, if you were sell for a small gain, you're like, yeah, I got that small gain. Well, instead, internalize that feeling of, yeah, I got that small gain, set your stop loss, and let it ride.
Yeah, if you set your stop loss, you're protecting your profits. You did what you needed to do to get those profits locked in. If, it dips down a little bit from where you bought in, that's, or I'm sorry, if it pumps up and then dips down a little bit, you're still well above where you bought in. You're in the green no matter what.
Yeah. And again, we will kind of go over the specifics on how to do all that for our upcoming Thursday stream. If you're just tuning in now, welcome. And so what we wanted to focus here on was just not selling too early. And you can see the fruits of your rewards, right? You buy in and you just kind of let it ride.
Yeah.
So my feeling on that is, it's easy to want to sell. You might panic, or in a panic crash situation, selling after that.
Yep.
And I'll tell you why that's a mistake. Because in a panic crash, by selling, you are internalizing that bleeding, and it is going to kill you, right?
And it's not going to feel good.
You took your loss, okay, already. Now, we just said that after a huge dip, usually there's a correction. So after a huge crash, if you didn't manage to sell out before the crash, just wait it out.
Yeah.
Somebody is looking at that coin and looking to scoop it up, and in that case, hey, there's...
I got some for you.
Yeah, exactly. So, you buy in and you make those extra sats. So.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of things to consider in choosing your entries and exits and trading. But, stick to the technical, stick to the fundamentals, and, sometimes they will lie to you. They've lied to me before. Sometimes the technicals didn't add up with the fundamentals or vice versa.
Yeah.
But, gains are gains.
Yeah.
And, as long as you protect your profits, you're good. And selling after a panic crash is just the worst thing, the worst feeling in the world after you just process that sell order, because, the way I look at it is you don't take a loss if you don't sell.
Yeah, and like I said before, you really, exactly like you just said, you don't take the loss until you make that transition back. So, it's possible there could be a small rebound there. Just watch for it.
And, it is pretty indicative of each individual coin. A coin with a higher volume, a higher daily volume, is more likely to rebound than one that has a weak volume.
So, to illustrate that point here, after selling after a crash, these are 5-minute candles on ONT Ethereum. And so if you were to buy in, let's say you buy this dip here, okay? You see it go up and down and it crashes and you sell down here. Well, you bought in up here and you're selling down here. So you actually just lost, 100 gwei or so per coin. When
That's
in
tough.
reality, look at this pump that happens just soon after.
Yep. And, to me, it punched through the bottom of that Bollinger Band in the oversell, which means that a correction is inevitable.
Yeah.
Because that sort of loss just isn't sustainable. People are going to see that and they're going to be like, I'm buying that.
Yeah, buy the dip. Buy the dip. We say it often and we say it frequently. If you buy the dip,
it's a mantra.
then you can do well. You can do well if you buy the dip, and we'll explain how to find that dip.
Yes.
On Thursday.
Thursday, yeah.
So we also did see a real-world adoption of cryptocurrency at a governmental level this week, as Venezuela announced a major devaluation of its currency, which is hyperinflated. If you haven't heard, Venezuela is basically in its death throes in terms of the country. There's no food in the stores, there's no shops, but they're struggling, and so after hyperinflation of I think they're set for annual inflation of something like 100,000%.
Yeah, something just astronomically retarded.
They have huge piles of bolivars, which are equal to $1 is a huge monstrous millions
friggin'
and
wheelbarrow of bolivar.
I mean, just think like those old pictures of Germany, post-war inflation. Then and it's the same thing down there right now. Just and so what the government's done is tried an experiment, and unfortunately, I don't think it's going to work.
No.
After devaluating their currency by 95%, then they pegged it to the petro, the official cryptocurrency of the Venezuelan government.
Yep. Petro kind of exists in that controversial territory because, there's very different schools of thought surrounding the petro as a whole. There are some people who see it as an attempt by the Venezuelan government to sort of balance out their debts, or not debts, but the hyperinflation that's been going on over the past several years. by generating this influx of foreign currency. But the problem is, the U.S., we are not legally able to buy petro. Donald
Right.
Trump, he placed that under sanction.
Well, yeah, and would you even want to buy it? I
No.
mean, at this point, you're.
I mean, we saw what they did to their own currency.
Well, not just would you want to buy it in the sense of would it be a reasonable investment, which it wouldn't be, but would you want to buy it in the sense of you are actively supporting a
Communist
horrible government? I'm not even going to talk about the merits of communism here, socialism, communism. That's a separate discussion.
Yeah, that's yeah.
But talking about the specific leader of Nicolas Maduro is. He's a plague on that country. I mean,
Yeah.
there's no food in the grocery stores. The banks aren't open. ATMs aren't working.
No, yeah.
People are literally mining Bitcoin to survive down there.
Yeah,
You know?
more power to him. I mean,
Illegally, I might
yes, yeah. It's funny how he imposes a cryptocurrency on his people. Well, not imposes, but tries to introduce it, but makes it illegal for other cryptos to exist in the space. So that's just kind of like that sort of line of thinking that he has is what would deter me as an investor. And if I'm not mistaken, the Petro is an oil-backed cryptocurrency. Where
Yep.
one Petro is equated to however many barrels of oil or a fraction of a barrel of oil.
Yeah, I don't think one is multiple barrels at this point, but maybe one day.
Yeah, I mean, if you're in a pinch and we're in like some sort of post-apocalyptic world and you need some gas, I mean, I guess you could just dump some bitty Bitcoin into some Petro and take a flight down to Venezuela, pick up some barrels of oil, and come on back.
Yeah, no, that would be a wild Mad Max kind of scenario.
Hey, man, you do what you got to do.
Yes, indeed. Well,
Thunderdome.
I think it's unfortunate that this is the first major governmental adoption, but history will look at this and make a note because this is significant.
It is.
And even if the project is doomed to failure, it's interesting. How many people are going to use it. We can kind of see how that trickles into society, and are people buying it, that kind of thing. So
yeah, we'll see how it plays out. I think Petro will be no mas before too long. Because I mean, with Maduro pulling the strings, I mean, it's just that sort of thing is just terribly, terribly unsustainable.
Yeah. Well, we did make moves onto a new social media platform.
Yes, we did.
And do you want to kind of walk people through what you have done and what is Minds?
Absolutely. So Minds is one of the latest dApps, or decentralized / distributed apps, whatever you want to call it. It exists. It's a social media platform that exists on the blockchain. It is totally anonymous. It required no personal information on my behalf to sign up. It's just like, hey, what do you want your username to be? What do you want your password to be?
Yeah.
And once you plug all that in, you're pretty much good to go.
Yeah.
You set up a wallet so that you can receive the Minds token, which you can use to boost your posts to get more views on them and whatnot.
Okay.
There's not a lot of people on Minds just yet. If I had to estimate, I'd probably say somewhere in the low tens of thousands, probably like 15 to 20,000 people.
But that number is certainly growing. Wouldn't you
Yes,
say?
absolutely, it is growing. One of the funny things I've discovered about Minds is with Facebook banning the InfoWars and Alex Jones and all that stuff, the crazy,
right,
the water turns the frogs gay guy. He's actually moved his social media platform to none other than Minds, and that's just kind of where he lives now.
That says a lot to me. The advantage that I've seen about Minds is that they don't include a lot of censorship. So whereas the Facebook community is very censored, there are certain groups that are just banned, certain ideologies that can't flourish. Now, we're not talking about, promoting something, outlandish here, but the fact is that they allow kind of any kind of content, as long as it's, we'll say, wholesome in a sense, in that
Well,
absolute rough violence is generally like reserved for certain communities. You got to go looking for that. If you want to go find that out there, the more fringes of information, it is there. But what happens is that once you sign up for these groups, boosted posts start going through. So your news feed updates much more quickly than Facebook's.
Yes.
And so you're able to kind of see the latest developments, articles, and that kind of thing much more quickly.
Yeah.
And I can't stress enough. I know you mentioned that it's a DApp, but this is entirely on Ethereum's blockchain.
Yeah. Yep. It is.
So thinking about that, we are now socially integrated on not just on traditional social media that we talked about.
But we are now on the blockchain.
But we're on the blockchain as well. And if you want to get on the blockchain too, build your own brand on Minds, we'll be happy to assist you with that.
Absolutely. It's very simple. It's a very simple process. It doesn't require any personal information that you don't want to give. And it's very seamless and easy to set up. So if that's something you might be interested in growing your personal presence or business presence on the blockchain, Minds is the way to go, and we'll be more than glad to help.
Yeah, we're definitely the experts when it comes to getting set up on alternative blockchains.
Yeah.
Finally, I did want to mention that we have recently, not just on Minds, but on traditional social media, reached out and found a great company, just a startup that's developing some cool merchandise around Bitcoin and around, different coins out there, Dogecoin, even some meme BitConnect shirts. It's a great company called BorkChain.
Yeah, BorkChain Inc. It was kind of, the connection was just meant to be. We just kind of happened to be in the same place at the same time. And, us being a relatively small informational stream and BorkChain Inc. being a relatively small t-shirt designing company, I thought, what better way than to, partner with a company that's our general size. And, I spoke to the owner, JR, and he's all for it. So, that is absolutely huge and groundbreaking for us. Our first official stream partner moving forward will be BorkChain Inc.
And you can get access to some really cool shirts, some really great memes, just by going to
BorkChain.com. Yep.
So we can show you guys what that looks like, and when you actually get on, you're able to.
I think you broke it.
I think mine.
For some reason, Brave does not like it.
Yeah, sorry. So, once we get this pulled up,
there we go.
So, I had to lower my Brave browser shield there for that one. I think it's because it redirects, but it redirects you once you go to BorkChain.com over to the store where you can actually purchase the shirts.
Yeah.
And you can see all these come in different color options as well. FOMO, Year of the Doge, HODL, all that. So some really great stuff for a pretty reasonable price. And you were saying that they actually accept not just fiat in exchange for this, but if you want to purchase directly using Bitcoin or another coin.
130 different cryptos the owner accepts. But in order to buy any of his products with crypto, the best way to do it is to reach out through him, and he'll get you the wallet addresses so you can send over the Bitcoin, and he'll get your shipping info and send you a shirt. And I also think it's worth noting that some of these, most notably the Year of the Doge shirts, a portion of that actually goes to charity, which I think is really, really good. The Year of the Doge shirts, I believe they go to dog rescues, which is,
such a laudable goal there.
Yeah, I think that's great.
Yeah.
But I think it's awesome to find somebody out there that has a rich love of crypto memes, as we do. And then to find them in t-shirt form, bruh, that's just great. So, keep an eye on BorkChain Inc. There's going to be some, new stuff that's coming out from them.
Yeah.
Super cool guy. He's a laid-back individual. I think great things are going to come of this partnership. So.
Oh yeah.
Buckle up.
We'll be rocking their merchandise, in the future, and definitely proud to do so. The memes are pretty dank.
Yeah.
But overall, that's going to do it for our quick and dirty stream today. We are condensing, so if you are hungry for some more Blog Talk, obviously we'll be back for you here this Thursday. We'll do a quick trading seminar and cover some of the new developments in the week.
Yes, and as always, after the streams, you can find our VODs on either YouTube or Facebook. Twitch only lets them hold our VODs for 14 days because of our sort of streamer status with them, but we are super close to closing in on affiliate. All thanks to you guys for tuning in and helping us boost our statistics. So as soon as we get to that milestone, we'll be celebrating that.
Yeah, absolutely. And also don't forget to follow our Twitter account at Real Blog Talk so we can...
Real underscore.
Yes, don't forget the
Blog
underscore.
Talk.
Don't forget the underscore.
Otherwise, you're just going to get lost or some other Twitter page is going to get some likes that they don't deserve.
That's right. Well, thanks again for tuning in.
Yes, absolutely.
And if you didn't get a chance to drop a question or comment for us live, please reach out to us on Twitter or on our Facebook page, and we'll be happy to discuss anything with you.
Send any questions our way. We'll be more than glad to answer every single one of them best we can. So we'll be looking forward to that. Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you, Tom, for your messages there, and we will see you next time.
Yep, thanks guys. We'll see you soon.